live, I think. We're live. All right, everyone. Good to have everybody here join us today. I'm here with Geleszinski.
Yeah.
Almost there. I mean, really growing up with my name, I should be really nailing other people's names every single time. From Needle and from Cushman, Wakefield, and Needle. So exciting to talk about both sides of the transaction from the Cushman side of things, in addition to why he's, with the benefit of a good old fashioned corporate job, you'd be insane enough to start a startup company. Talking about getting hell yes. Reminder for everybody, when we talk about getting hell yes, what we want to cover off is, recognition that the buyer's journey these days is something a little bit different than what we're used to in the past. Buyers are looking to have more access to information than they ever had before. And so if we can take a look at what the buyer looks and feels like and think about what the buyer's circumstance, we can get to hell yes faster because we're matching them up with a problem and a solution versus trying to persuade them to do something that maybe is a little unnatural. So I'm going to kick it off as we always do. Stash, give me a sense around a bit around your background. How'd you have this role? And a bit of the problem you solved, and we can go back and forth between Cushman and Needle, because I think it's exciting to talk about both of them. Especially given they're related.
For sure. 100%.
Awesome. Go for it, man.
So Stash Geleszinski, I'm a managing director at Cushman and Wakefield. I'm also a partner and founder in Needle AI. And I got into real estate because I guess like my mom was a residential agent, and she unfortunately passed when I was like a teenager. But I was like, okay, real estate's a thing. And then I didn't want to drive people around in my minivan. And so I figured out commercial real estate was a thing. And the first firm I joined was an apartment brokerage, essentially. And I had syndicated some deals with them. I ended up in Cincinnati in 2011, and really just had to break my way into the market through sheer force of will, like lots of cold calls, lots of, market research, deciphering, just the raw data from the auditor. And, it takes time for any salesperson to get traction.
You got to build a pipeline.
Yeah. And,
especially on the brokering side, because you're starting on both sides. Like you can't just build a pipeline of one side.
No, like I had an interaction. I remember early on, I had a seller or a client say to me, or prospective client, hey, we're looking for this type of deal. And I found another broker's listing, and I sent it to him. I was like, hey, this looks like it fits for you. And he called me and he very politely said, Stash, I really appreciate you sending this, but we get every other broker's
stuff as well.
You don't need to send this to us. If we want it, we're going to buy it through them. And I was like, oh. He's like, if you want to do business with us, you have to bring us deals. So I was like, all right, this is much harder than I thought.
Right.
And so, you eventually get traction, and, I saw the data increasing in accuracy over time.
Right.
And I was using the CRM system that, if you had a buyer's criteria in there and you had a deal that matched, you could hit match buyers, and it would give you a hot list of prospective buyers. And I was like, that's cool. And then at the same time, I was kind of discovering that if you can get in front of the right owner at the right time, and this was coming out of like the great financial crisis. So part of it was, getting, finding kind of those distressed opportunities. But as the market kind of stabilized, it went a little bit back to normal.
Was that residential or was it commercial? Like, or it was multifamily then?
Multifamily.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always sold multifamily.
Okay.
So, I remember I called this guy and I said, I'm calling about, it was called Timber Trail. And I called him about the specific property at the right time. He said, yeah, I'm a seller. And it was like, oh, and he had a host of other properties. So it's like, if you can figure out a way to, as a broker, get in front of your, be as high value to your prospects and clients as you can by calling them, at being in front of them at the right time and having the right discussion about the property. That would be phenomenal. And so, the hypothesis was, what if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? So that's what we started doing
with Needle.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is you're your own customer. In many cases.
And the ideal customer profile.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know that, like even myself, like, when we started Iris, like we're not from this business. Right. And so like for me, the learning curve is vertical to have to go learn. I'm so lucky to be able to have conversations that have taught me how to learn and or what I've been able to learn in the short amount of time. But it's been a lot more work than someone who's coming from the business, right? Because I can't, even at the mouse click level, I've got to guess a little bit and then get validation from other people. And that's more work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really, Needle came as a want that I had. And, if you look at the larger data platforms out there, they're just kind of encyclopedias of what's out there currently versus what is likely
because you're talking about what could be a transaction versus what's already listed.
Yeah. And it also came from like what we saw when we're underwriting deals. We look at things on a T12, T6, and T3 basis. And you'll often see a trend. And so it's like, okay, they've been increasing rental rates, maybe they've been trimming expenses. Chances are they're positioning it for some sort of capital.
The P&L.
Yeah. Either a refi or a sale.
Right. And so when you take a look at the market out there, like right now, like how does the AI piece build into the what Needle does differently than what you have? Like, so actually, first question, what do you have available today at Cushman? Like, very, class A, tier 1 organization, go with the assumption that you have available to all the resources you need.
Yeah.
But they're not there. So what do you do? What's there today?
Yeah.
And then why is that a problem? And then, why the Needle thing?
So to the first part, we've got a Salesforce-based platform that is a CRM.
They're home tuned kind of thing.
Yeah, they're and a problem with these larger organizations, you might say, is that they have so many different service lines, and they need one CRM to be able to service all the different. So, you have
to get a revenue forecast,
property management, asset management, tenant rep, investment sales, capital markets. With Greystone, they have a debt servicing and origination business. They have receiverships. They have construction. Lots of different things. And so, they have this big CRM that they built. And I think that it's like, okay, now we have everything in one place, and just managing that is a task in and of itself.
Totally. And you're afraid to even navigate it a little bit, because if I pull on this thread, that affects this side over here.
Definitely.
And they're all different businesses in a single architecture. So you kind of get like trade-offs all over the place on how everyone wants to optimize for their business, because you've got to get the middle 60% correct, and everyone else just suffers with the other 40% they could have used.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
Prior to joining Cushman, we were at a smaller firm for 8 years or so. And, again, it was a Salesforce-based platform. But, if you have not great data that you're putting in the front end of it, well, the back end of it that you're actually trying to use is not going to be actionable. And, that was a challenge. And it was a persistent, expensive problem that never was able to be remedied or went away. So I'm here left pulling spreadsheets, trying to figure out the best way to go out and cultivate opportunities and build relationships.
And the business of brokering is to find the deal before it's listed.
100%.
Right. Because once it's listed, it's got someone else's name on it.
Yeah.
And that takes too much work. It takes a lot of work.
And investment sales is unique in that way, because it's not like buying and selling houses where you have buyer's agents and seller's agents. The broker for a commercial real estate transaction is oftentimes one party. And like, I've got a team, so like it might be any one of the 5 brokers on my team, but we're not really co-oping with
Yeah.
anyone, really. Probably 95. The deals that we end up co-oping are the smallest ones.
So the problem that you guys solve is that deals don't really emerge as a deal, as an entity, until they're formally listed.
Right.
And the job
Yeah.
is to find deals before
Yeah.
they're listed.
Yeah.
Or find investors before, that are looking for deals, right?
Yeah.
And either way, you look at it, given that you guys have to sell to both sides, you have to sell to an investor to close a deal, and you got to sell to a listing to
A
a
property
seller,
owner
a
to
property
sell
owner
his
to
property.
sell.
Yeah.
Then you've got this kind of double-sided marketplace that you've got to activate a sales cycle for, which
Mhm.
takes a lot of energy,
Yeah.
and it's all about timing. And this is how
Yeah.
brokers get paid.
Yeah.
Is that because you provide that value? So the problem is that we can't find the deals fast enough, and we don't really know, given that, I mean, especially we look at the last 24 months, right? So a lot of people became sellers that might not have been sellers.
Yeah.
They might not have been in their plan to become sellers.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they're in a variable mortgage, and they got squeezed in the bottom end of it, in the back end. So they're either forced to sell, they couldn't refi,
Right.
or they're in a situation where they're in the market because they need cash for something else.
Right.
Right. And so your needle will be able to predict based on all the available data, which deals are likely to be listed. And then you can have that friendly conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, have you looked in the market and noticed this? Rather than kind of like, I mean, to use the residential real estate agent, the leaflet in the door,
Yeah.
on the doorknob, right?
The worst call you can make as commercial real estate brokers. Hey man, what's going on? I'm just calling to check in.
Yeah.
That is a waste of everyone's time.
Totally.
You want to be actionable.
You can't add value.
No, you're not adding any value there.
Well, what's interesting for everyone listening is that that is the definition of hell yes, right?
Yeah.
Is you're using AI to trim your lead list.
Yeah.
And it's they're not even leads until they're actually showing up, because you're actually developing your needle will needle in the haystack, I assume.
Yeah.
Is going to trim that list into what opportunities could become opportunities, which is the whole point of the process.
Yeah. So it's like you still have to go out and do your job as a broker, but it's like, okay, if you have to make your calls, start with these opportunities first, and you can group them by property owners, so you can see, the property owner's portfolio and which ones are flagged as hot, warm, or cold, and then you can, have a strategic conversation. Like, oftentimes we've got a user out of Florida. His name's Bo Beery, and the first call he made, he's like, "Hey, I'm using this new software. It's designed to help identify transactions. Is there any reason why this property would be popping up?" And he's like, "Well, actually, yeah, we just listed it with your competitor, unfortunately. But for these reasons, that's why it was popping up." And he called me and left a hell of a voicemail, which I still have saved. And just the excitement in his voice was
palpable.
That is what you want to hear.
100%.
Yeah. And so what we're saying is, in any given market, there's bound to be a number of transactions. We're not a one-to-one of being able to determine which ones are going to trade or not, but we're saying, okay, if we're identifying 100 properties within a given market that are a likely sale candidate, 20 to 40 of those are going to trade in the next 7 months, which is the perfect amount of time to go out and get in front of something.
It's interesting. Take a look at the innovation in the real estate space, and a lot of things, even our company, right? There are innovations that are ported over from other businesses. Like I can just imagine already, my mind is already flipping in terms of once a property goes into trigger, then you can initiate a drip campaign that goes to that property owner.
Yeah.
And no one has even woken up yet, right?
Right.
So all of a sudden, because of conditions change, interest rates change, right? Interest rates change. All of a sudden, this tranche of properties fall into the criteria of what would be a sellable property.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you start trickling drip campaigns that go right to them, that are personalized, that are appropriate. And then and you didn't send them the week before. So you weren't flooding their inbox when they didn't matter. But now that it does matter, you can start sending them information. And then if they click through or whatever, now all of a sudden you've got leads before anybody else got them.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate goal.
Because you automate the marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's what we're working to achieve.
Outstanding. So when you guys are taking a look at, so have you in market, Needle's got customers already, and I guess depending how you want to take this thread with respect to talking about Cushman or talking about Needle, might be the same conversation, because it's the same problems and how you ask people, right? When you're taking a look at the market, what is going on? So then we're talking about the broker. What's going on in a broker's life that forces them to change, like forces them to think about doing it a different way?
So the life of a broker is, we'll just talk about like a one man shop at this point.
Yeah.
You've got, first you got to go out and find the deal, then you've got to manage it on the way through closing. So it's a lot of peaks and valleys, ups and downs. And so then you build a team to try and go out and maximize everybody's skill set. The things that force change, I think, are, it's the old way isn't working anymore. Or I know that there's a better way to do this. So I guess that's what I would say to that. I've been able to find and source listings and closings through Needle, personally.
Well, for sure, you're the first.
I should.
You're the tester, right?
Yeah.
So then, if you're going out to market to brokers, right? So there's brokers that are just going to say, "I'm doing just fine. Thanks very much. I've got a whole, I've got juniors that are begging to work for me. They're going to work for nothing. They're going to work 100 hours a week. So I don't really need, I don't need people or problems." The other ones who say, "Well, I've got people that are offshore. They're doing all the digging for me, and they're mining it all, and they send me stuff." I'm just going down the numbers. Like most problems in life can be solved with people, outsourcing, or technology, right? And so what's going on with those two things of hiring people? Maybe it's too slow to train them or whatever, or they're hard to find, or they're asking for too much, or the margins have gotten to a point that I can't pay enough to hire them enough. Like what's happening that's kind of like they've said, F it, I'm going to try something different.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've seen, and I have almost been victim of it too. New brokers come in and they're like, "Yeah, I want to do this. I'm ready to make 100 calls a day." And what happens is they might do that, but then they're like, "I don't know what to say."
Yeah.
Okay. And then, well, you have to go learn
because
the market.
they're doing that. "Hey, how's it going?" call.
Kind of. Yeah. And then what happens is they end up getting lost in their spreadsheet, as I've seen, and it almost happened to me. I had a broker that was like, "No, your job is to be on the phone. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. But I need to know." "No, you don't. Just pick up the phone." And that's really,
it's spray and pray though, right? It's just old fashioned spray and pray.
Yeah. So the problem with just throwing people at it is that it's a tough job. And the washout rate is pretty high. The second thing with outsourcing, well, why wouldn't you want to just outsource it? A property owner that has, 1,000 units to 10,000, 100,000 units is not going to take a call from a virtual assistant and then have anything actionable off of that.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
And is that where the call goes to? Goes to the property owner, or does it go to some sort of asset manager level?
It depends. Like if it's mom and pop seller, you're talking directly with the property owner. As they have larger portfolios, you'll get into oftentimes the acquisition and asset manager tend to be the same
guys. Yep.
And then once you get up into like the real institutional capital, that's when you have defined roles for acquisition specifically, asset management specifically, and even disposition specifically. And same thing, like maybe you'll score some mom and pops with outsourced people, but it's like the 80, I don't know if it's the 80-20 rule, but the smaller deals, what happens is they take
as much time as the bigger deals,
if not more, because there's more hand holding.
Yeah.
But for me, I didn't have somebody that I mentored under. You have to start where you have to start.
Yeah. So then who would Needle be best for? If I take a look at, well, now we're really getting comfortable here. You're staying in camera.
Yeah.
When we take a look at like the tiering of brokers, right?
Yeah.
So it's called Cushman number 1 or tier 1, right?
Yeah.
So like, who's Needle the best for? Like, okay, the easy answer is for everybody. but who's really
Sure.
who's feeling the pain the greatest? Is it the one? Because to your point, the small deals take about as much time as the big deals or more.
Mhm.
So who's going to be the ones that are saying like, I want to change
Yeah. So when
now?
I went through an ICP exercise,
Mhm.
like, because I was like, it's brokers.
Ideal customer profile.
Yeah. It's any broker that wants to sell more deals.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you have to get granular. And so it's like, okay, it's, um, independent, boutique shops, um, individual franchises, say like SVN, for
Where you've
instance.
got buying authority.
Yeah.
At the end of the phone call, you got buying authority.
Yeah. And then like regional firms or super regional, like there's firms that maybe just are on the West Coast or just in Chicagoland, something like that, or just in, the, greater New York City area.
Yeah.
So, those are the groups that we've initially targeted the broker persona of Needle to go after. And
is it a regional business? Like, is regional help? Like, do Midwest people buy differently than people on the East Coast? Like, they know each other really well. How does that work?
So I've had some demos or calls with New Yorkers, and they immediately want a discount, and it's like,
okay,
sure,
yeah.
But that's kind of the difference between, New York and people in the Midwest, for instance. It's much more. You've got to work your way in. I'm in the Midwest and I have been for 15 years. Like, there's kind of a perception that it's flyover country, and because you're not in New York, for instance, you're not as smart as me. And it's like, no, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
That might be what you think, but.
Well, the Midwest, last November, Midwest played was a pretty important spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of sway in there. There's a lot of people.
Right.
And I think what's interesting is that I bet I need your data on this one, but I would bet good money that the density is a lot more distributed. So you've got a lot more properties. They may not be, 700 people, 700 resident units inside a single building. So you actually have more people to sell to.
Yeah.
And in a wider market, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, at this conference that we're at, NMHC, like, I think it was 2 years ago that, that's when the Sun Belt market started to falter. And all of a sudden we were the coolest kids at the party.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's like, oh yeah, okay. But we maintain good, strong, market fundamentals. Rent growth persists.
It's kind of characteristic of the Midwest, right? Steady as she goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then add a lot of population growth in there along the way.
Yeah. It's a steady. It's not like Austin or Nashville or Charlotte, where you're having, just truckloads of people coming in every day. But, people oftentimes, like, they'll grow up in the Midwest, like you see it in Cincinnati all the time. They'll go to school somewhere and then they come back.
Yeah.
Because it's a great place to raise a family.
Well, that's the whole affordability, like that's a separate conversation, but like the affordability angle is really driving a lot of growth in the Midwest. We're seeing the same thing in Canada. Right?
Yeah.
Like our version of the Midwest is growing much, much, much faster than the big cities because, like, inflation, I mean, the housing bubble that exists in those other places is really starting to hurt people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, whether it be multifamily, condo, single family, all those different segments are all being hurt by the inflationary impact of I'll say the bubbling effect, right? And so why would you want to, if there's already a pre-existing bubble and everyone kind of is aware of it, why would you go in there and double down, right?
Right.
And so that has a bit of a compounding effect on things, but nonetheless, people can make choices now, and there's lots of opportunity in the Midwest.
Well, yeah, and you look at a city like Cincinnati. I think just the city of Cincinnati, or maybe Hamilton County, which doesn't include Northern Kentucky, which is firmly part of the
That's where the airport is.
Yeah. There's a need for 30,000 housing units.
Yeah.
Like, before we went live, that developer I was meeting with, they're like, in this county alone, we need 8,000 units.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because you have buildings doesn't mean that they're, we have an older housing stock there. So it's like, I'm renovating a building right now, originally built in 1880, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
like ceramic pipes, like or clay pipes.
We gutted it. It's completely gutted.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were telling me about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm trying to think how we bring this home, but
Well, it really comes into like, I mean, the buyer, which, to the point of the ICP exercise, right? Segmenting that buyer.
yeah,
All brokers, not all brokers, but it is like there is a specific person who's got buying authority and pain.
Yeah. And so the other part of that ICP exercise I did, I said, okay, well, we want to look at those that have done at least, I think, 5 multifamily deals of 50 units or more over the past 2 years. So that means that they are at least versed in it and they didn't just happen to fall into a multifamily deal. Sometimes it happens. And then I looked to see if they're active on LinkedIn. And like if they're actively posting, do they have a banner? Is their headshot recent?
Yeah.
Are they posting recently? And I kind of manually scored a lot of these folks that fit into this profile based on those characteristics. And I think the way I did it, the guy that was leading me through it, I think he bought it at the end, but he wanted, I don't know, he wanted me to do it his way. And I was like, this is just the way that I'm trying to figure it out.
So then the other kind of shooting the other foot at Cushman, when you're looking for deals, how do you do it there?
That's a good question. How do you do it there? Because you can take assignments with groups that you believe to be credible and you can go out and hunt for deals. That's one way to do it. But that's not the core of your business. Like if you're working only with buyers, the problem with buyers is you can bring them a deal, and we had it happen here. We met with a group. They're like, this is exactly what we want. We brought them a deal 2 months later that was exactly what they wanted, and they shot it full of holes. We wanted 12 for it. They're like, we're at 7.5. It's like, how? This is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
So there's an issue with only aligning with buyers because that seems like the easiest thing to do. I'll just go be a buyer rep.
Yeah.
But it's fraught with trouble. So you go out and you have meaningful conversations. You have face-to-face meetings like what we're doing here. You earn trust and confidence, and then you want to sprinkle that in with, hey, I've got this other listing in the market. Even if it's not relevant to them, you're at least showing up and saying, hey, I have a listing in the market. Wanted to see if it's something that you might be interested in. You might look at loan maturities, but the problem with looking at just loan maturities or variable rate debt, they might have a rate cap on it, and there's no way for you to know that. You don't know when the rate cap expires because that's not public information.
Oh, interesting.
I've tried to look. It's not out there.
Right.
Because it's basically an insurance policy.
or it's a bump, right? It's a get you to close a deal kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's But I'm at a point now in my career where it's like I'm getting deal flow because of the seeds I planted.
Because of the pipeline
years ago.
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
It's a flywheel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole brokerage business, right? Is that you got to have both sides going all the time. And then telling incredible stories of wins for both that serve well for both sides. Right. So when you're out there, again, like in the business of brokering and finding these deals, as you're trying to bring on other people, bring on other customers or investors, what other things have they considered? So again, not to confuse the audience, when you're looking at let's stick to Needle because it's probably an easier conversation. Sure. So for Needle, when you're looking out there and you've talked to them they've said, okay, I've tried hiring, I've tried outsourcing.
Yeah.
What else do they normally have they tried?
Well, they've got CoStar, they've got Yardi, and those are, I'm not disparaging them by any means. Don't sue me, CoStar.
We want to go to the party on Tuesday.
I will not be at that party. But they're just encyclopedias for what's out there.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to go out and do your best to kind of figure out, okay, which one do I think might be interested in selling.
Mhm.
And some owners, you categorically know that they're never sellers. Like they'll declare it. We never sell anything. And then there are other groups that are high transactors. A lot of syndicators
Mhm.
come in and they'll buy something, they'll add some value, and then put a lot of people here. I'm going to hear, I want a value add deal 50 times. In the
Yeah, you
next 2
mentioned that.
days.
Yeah, well, they want something they can flip for easy money, right?
Yeah.
Do your so when they're looking for a solution like yours, like Needle.
So
Yeah.
So back to that, there isn't really. So the other competitors, I think, Reonomy has a platform that purports to have intelligent leads. I've tried it. I'm not disparaging Reonomy, but it is not, in my opinion, as easy to use as what we have built.
Gotcha.
There's another one out there. I forget what it's called.
So
But it's a demo, but it's super expensive.
right.
Like
So what they're
$2,000
typing into Google,
per
they're
person,
typing into how much per person?
$2,000 per person per month.
Oh, that's pretty good business. You can get
Well,
into
if you can get it.
Yeah. So then that's what people are typing into Google. Is saying I need lead generation software.
We've looked at the keywords. It's off-market deals.
Okay.
Commercial real estate CRM.
Right.
And it, back to some of the problems with brokerage is you've got to build your own farm. And so first is, where am I going to get the data?
Yeah.
And then how am I going to, properly like manipulate it to be able to make hay out of it?
Right.
And it's like, well, we already have the data. And then we're scoring the properties based on the ones that we think are most likely to sell. Just go out and have meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
Go forth and prosper.
Well, really, I think the way you describe it, there's a part of a broker's job is to finesse a deal across the finish line, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that everyone's going to have a very good business transaction and outcome, because like you ultimately want, that's how your reputation is built.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work and grinding to get to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the personalities that are able to do that finessing may not be the ones that are doing the grinding work. And so
Right.
Neil's going to solve all those problems for them. So when they're typing into Google, I need more leads,
Yeah.
I need more real whatever, how can I find better deals?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the results of what you can consider. I don't know what that result set would be, but you guys can pop up in that. And then all of a sudden they're articulating the problem that they're trying to solve in their terms.
Yeah.
You guys show up and you're able to solve those problems. And then now you've got a match. So go back to the problem that we solve is around getting good deals that before they hit list.
Yeah.
That you can present and kind of lock in.
Yeah.
I presumably moving to an education kind of funnel, like a drip funnel.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, you spoke specifically of Midwest in terms of like geographic region, but that's just kind of the archetype, right? If someone's that might be your target for Needle in the short term, like it doesn't mean the same, it doesn't need to be the same type forever. Because like even for us right now, right? If we go right at Graystar, we'll be selling to them for 24 months. We have to get to deals that are going to close. Right. And those deals are going to close are going to be at a different firmographic than what we might pursue. We might, let's say, we'll have aspirations to pursue certain types of deals, but there's actually kind of making goals around the deals that you can close this quarter, next quarter, third quarter, versus kind of aspirational.
If you're just
top numbers in
whale hunting, that's a good way to starve.
100%. Totally.
Like, if that's what you want to do and you don't have a background in it, I wish you the best. Yeah. But you've got to work your way into that. So to your point, you've got to start small and then grow from there. Yeah. There's a really good, I live by this expression. This is the crossing the chasm, Jeffrey Moore concept around the bowling pin model, right? It's that you line up a whole bunch of bowling pins that are close enough together that they can touch, and you start knocking down. You put all your energy knocking down that first pin, and then they will knock down other pins. Right. And that's a legacy of reputation building and case studies that help. They're less energy than that initial sale. Yeah. But that can convert those different sales and knock those pins down. Yeah. Right. But like the bowling pin, all of the prospects need to look very similar. Right. Like a deal that closes a 2,000 unit, or sorry, I'll say mid-sized brokerage or even small-sized brokerage, that's not going to be the same one that tips off the big ones. Like Cushman's not going to buy based on, what you did to kind of work your way up those different markets. And you have to be involved in those. At some point it's individual and then you move to teams, and then you have kind of a
Committees.
smaller enterprise,
Yeah.
and then you get to the full on enterprise level sales.
Yeah.
And those are much more consultative, whereas here's what we've built, go use it.
Yeah.
This is out of the box.
What's interesting, what's I'll say beneficial to what Needle's selling right now is that a buyer can buy it with really very low risk. Because like the worst thing that possibly could happen is they get proposals for deals that don't turn, but just that's like what's going to happen.
Welcome to brokerage.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's not worse or better than the one right now. And then as you guys tune it,
Mhm.
and they get a higher conversion on offers, or commits or whatever you want to call it, then it becomes exceptionally valuable to them because they're using AI to jump ahead of everybody else.
Yeah. And the other thing, I haven't mentioned it, but the thing in brokerage is that usually you end up selling the deal with the guy or girl that brought it to you.
Right.
And so there's this cycle, but that's in the marketing side of it. And you can disrupt it with an off-market deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are in the chain,
right?
Instead of your competitor. And so in the off-market, there's no loyalty. Sorry, he brought me a deal that just happened to be
exactly what I was looking for.
Price and terms that were acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it happen myself, where you think you have a listing lined up and then, I just sold it to this person because they had a need.
Very cool. So then when you're taking a look at these one things that we're always looking for from a hell yes conversation is the concept of a time wall, right? Like they've got to do something by a certain point.
Yeah.
When you're selling in a revenue, you always have the benefit of the quarter because that's a kind of like I'll say a real time wall that applies to everybody in revenue.
Yeah.
On a cost saving side of things, there's kind of like you've got to find a different time wall.
It's nebulous.
It doesn't mean anything. It's like you got to save cost this quarter. Well, maybe I can just push it out a little bit and pump down the road. When you're out there pitching on Needle, are you pitching to the revenue side of things? Are you pitching to the make more money this quarter, or is it save money on how you're running your revenue ops?
Listen, if you can go out and close another deal that's $150,000-$250,000 fee, is that worth a couple $100 a month? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the pitch that we're
because you can get that.
Honestly, I feel like we're selling to greed, but that's why we're
welcome to this conference. We're in Vegas for God's sake.
We're talking about deals.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that's a lot of the motivation, because one of the things that we're talking about quite a bit, or at least modifying, is that really, multifamily is a renewals business. It's not an acquisition business from a resident perspective, right? And so the more we can align with the renewal business, the more we can be attached to revenue line, which has a quarter onto it. And so we can get deals to move faster by attaching ourselves to a renewal conversation versus attaching ourselves to a cost savings conversation.
Right.
Because the cost savings conversation just kind of gets punted. Yeah. Right. But if I can talk into renewals and cap rates, then I'm going to be a lot faster.
Then you're talking their language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's to kind of bring it back to the original part of the conversation. That's the conversation that I didn't know was an important decision-making criteria because I wasn't from the industry.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that is, and we're already getting good returns on those conversations.
Good.
Versus talking about more productive maintenance people.
Yeah.
Right. Because it just takes too many steps for the brain to think about.
Well, it's how is that even quantifiable?
Yeah. And then now I got to explain to you why it might be. But if I can just be direct about the point about renewals and resident experience, and then ultimately about, and we'll do it cheaper, then that's affects the cap multiple, and then it affects the,
it reduces your
just explaining. Well, all of a sudden you're talking to a higher person as well.
Right.
You're not selling the property manager anymore. You're talking to the asset manager, the regional manager. Right.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's faster because ultimately the property manager doesn't have the buying authority.
Right.
So we were trying to struggle with that for a long time, is how that, where that buying authority resides and where the pain resides doesn't necessarily mean that deal will emerge. Doesn't mean a deal will emerge.
Yeah.
Right. Just because it's painful doesn't mean the people that have the money are going to prioritize solving that pain.
Right. Because they're not experiencing
it. Yeah. And so it is an interesting way to approaching things because it seems obvious when you look back at it in retrospect. Right.
I mean, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit of all those things, right?
Yeah.
What objections do you typically hear?
For Needle?
For Needle, yeah.
Yeah. It's often around timing. I think especially because the past 2 years have probably been some of the most challenging.
Sure.
Year and a half, 2 years. So, revenue isn't there to take on another subscription. We've tried to make it very, we'll give you 30 days free.
Mhm.
Just try it. And, but it's only as good as a tool is only as good as the amount that you use it.
Sure.
As you say.
Well, it's
So
lead gen.
if you're not
Right.
going to use it, it's not going to replace your prospecting. It's going to make your prospecting more effective.
Well, because they're not opening a phone book and going down
No.
the numbers, right?
Or like literally when I started, I just got a data dump of the auditor's record and I had to manually figure out who's at what address.
Yeah.
I had to Google the address. It gave me a good understanding of the data and what's available.
Sure.
But I would not wish that on any new salesperson.
No, you want to be able to jump in the car and push the start button.
Yeah.
You don't
That's
want to
what I
learn how.
expected.
You don't want to learn that a piston, that a fuel injector blows gas into a piston that cranks an engine that turns a differential. It's like, no, I just want to push.
Yeah.
And now I don't even want to drive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Let something else.
Put my
do that.
destination in.
Yeah.
Take me to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely, there's and all that saves time, and presumably, like, if you really want to talk to the greed percentage, like perspective, like if you can eliminate the people that are bringing the deals to the table, you get a bigger piece of that commission.
Yeah.
So if you can cut out people in the whole deal flow,
Yeah,
you get a bigger piece of that.
If you theoretically, if you don't have junior
for a couple $100.
Yeah, and you can just staff it with maybe VAs that can handle some of those other details. The transaction management is a skill set in and of itself. Like, sure. I've got some guys on my team that are they're much better at it than I can do all facets of it, but it's like,
it's not the best use of your time.
Right. I'm best front end business development. Let me bring it in, throw it over the fence. You guys take it from here.
Yeah.
So
when you so now kind of closing out, when you take a look at folks that are starting in the business, and let's say like in any business, right? And they're looking to find that hell yes buyer. What kind of advice would you give them, given what you've learned in life and what you're relearning with Needle with respect to trying to find that hell yes buyer?
For, I guess, new brokers, I guess you want to, it's a steep learning curve, but you want to make sure that you're, it's a tough question. You want to make sure that you're just adding as much value to the conversations. And, anytime you call somebody that you've got, and even if it's the same line that you're pitching to everybody, you want to just have something interesting and insightful that's going to have a meaningful conversation, I think. And I'm probably guilty of it myself by not doing that. Oftentimes now when I'm calling, I'm like, hey, I have this buyer that wants to do this deal with you, or whatever it is. Are we going to do it or not? No? Okay, I got to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very to the point, which is maybe part of a downfall, but it's also helped me get, like, the worst is when you get a call from, how's it going? How's your day? It's like, get to the point.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Well, especially if you're talking to executives, right?
Yeah.
Like, be quick.
I am so slammed. I want to know what you're selling right away.
Yeah.
So I can either engage or not.
We all get cold calls all the time, and they often, there is some semblance of they are hitting at least the dartboard, like not the bullseye, but they're near the problem I'm trying to solve. And it's a good guess of what I might be looking to solve, but I'm very quick saying, okay, what's the problem to solve? Like, be quick. I don't want to hear this. Stop it.
I had somebody cold call me the other day, and you're pitching capital essentially. And he's like, where are most of your deals? What do you do? I was like, you called me. You should know this.
I'm on your short list.
Yeah. Okay, I'll send you some information. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know. The polite PFO.
Yeah, it's
borderline Canadian with that kind of response.
I'm a professional caller.
It's I can tell you something. I think there's something to be said about, like, people often ask, why are salespeople pushy? It's not, we're not pushy. We just we got to get something done.
Yeah.
And when you've been told no 1,000 times, like, you're kind of like bulletproof to it.
Yeah.
And so it's not. It's
No.
not.
Okay. Click.
Yep. Okay. See ya.
There's,
I can't help you today.
especially when you're starting off. There's almost a game of you want to be able to hang up before the prospect hangs up on you. And when physical, when everything's on your cell phone now,
Sure.
but like
Just not as dramatic.
Yeah, you used to have a desk phone, and it would be, you want to slam the phone down before they do.
One thing that's seen in Moneyball. No, hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think with Needle, honestly, we've got some. We have one woman in particular who's going to lead our sales efforts in addition to myself. But it's like, do you want to do more deals?
Yeah.
Do you want to know which deals are going to trade before your competition? Yeah, of course you do.
And that's the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're kind of selling a crystal ball.
Outstanding. We're on this getting hell yes. One of the 5 questions we always ask is, who should we talk to next?
That's a good question. I did not prepare for that. Getting to hell yes. You should talk to Bo Beery, or you should talk to my partner Sharif Gouda if you want to talk to.
All right.
Another commercial real estate broker. Sharif would love to do this.
Awesome. Well, we'll get a hold of Sharif. That'd be awesome to get an intro.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for
It
having
was
me.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was good chat.
It was fun.
As you mentioned, we're at MHC today, so we're chit-chatting around here, and it is busy.
Yeah.
It is like vibrating.
We found a quiet corner.
We did.
But it's all right there.
It is vibrating right now. So if you're down here, shoot, either of us are paying. Love to connect and have a chat. We'll be on Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast. Like us on the things and follow along. It helps us keep going. And leave any comments in terms of feedback. It's always outstanding. This is through LinkedIn Live, so it will be published and available until we take it down, which we don't do that.
Yeah.
Podcasts will be pushed out in about a week. There'll be a blog post as well and some stuff around there. But yeah, please listen and tune in. We've got another one on Wednesday with Stephanie Anderson she is from, oh Jesus, I forgot her. Oh, well.
That's okay.
I'll forget about it later. I'll remember later. And anyways, she's awesome. She's super exciting to chat about. Oh, Grace Hill.
Okay.
Grace Hill. And super exciting to talk about the training side of things and how that's helping change the multifamily world. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you're here, have a great show. And if you're listening, we wish you were here. Take care.
Deals.
Bye, everyone. Deals. All right.